Her body tensed
This
at his
feels
words,
perfect.
those 5 syllables
look
hanging in
beautiful.
the air between them like suspended crystal. Emma's reflection in the mirror captured the exact moment her perfect evening shattered, mascara-rimmed eyes widening, red lips parting in disbelief. Behind her stood Daniel, her assistant of 3 years, his calloused fingers still holding the zipper of her midnight blue gown, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. "What did you just say?" she whispered, though she'd heard him perfectly. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories that capture life's unexpected moments. Your support means everything. Emma Sullivan had everything: a corner office overlooking Manhattan, the respect of the entire publishing industry, and a date to the National Book Awards with the city's most eligible bachelor. Daniel Parker had only one thing: his 7-year-old daughter Sophie, and for her, he worked tirelessly as executive assistant to one of New York's most demanding literary editors. Two worlds that were never meant to collide beyond professional boundaries, until tonight changed everything. 3 hours earlier, Emma had been finalizing her acceptance speech. Everyone knew Monarch Publishing was taking home the Publisher of the Year award, the culmination of her decade-long climb from editorial assistant to executive editor-in-chief. Richard, her investment banker boyfriend of 8 months, had promised to be her +1, to stand beside her during her moment of triumph. "Ms. Sullivan, I've finished the quarterly reports," Daniel had said, knocking on her open office door at precisely 6:30 p.m., his messenger bag already slung over his shoulder, ready to race home to relieve Sophie's babysitter. Emma hadn't looked up from her laptop. "Just leave them on the desk. And remember, I'm taking tomorrow morning off after the awards, so reschedule anything before noon." "Of course," he'd replied, placing the folder precisely at the corner of her glass desk. He'd turned to leave when her phone rang. She'd answered with a bright, "Richard. Just finishing up here. I'll meet you at the—" Her smile had faltered, then disappeared entirely as she listened. Daniel had paused at the threshold, witnessing the color drain from her face. "I see," she'd said finally, her voice clinically professional despite the tremor in her hand. "No, I understand completely. A deal that size, yes, of course it takes precedence. Good luck with the Tokyo clients." She'd hung up and stared at her dark screen for several long seconds. Daniel had cleared his throat. "Everything all right, Ms. Sullivan?" She'd looked up as if surprised to find him still there. "Richard can't make it. Emergency client meeting." Her voice had been flat, practiced at hiding disappointment. "It's fine. I'll just go alone." But Daniel had seen what she tried to conceal: the hurt, the humiliation of showing up solo to accept the biggest award of her career, after telling everyone about her perfect boyfriend. Without thinking, he'd said, "I could come with you." The look she'd given him made him instantly regret the words. Who was he to offer? Just her assistant, the guy who remembered how she took her coffee and made sure her dry cleaning was picked up on time. "I mean," he'd backpedaled, "just so you don't have to arrive alone. I could drop you off, even. Sophie's with my sister tonight anyway." She'd stared at him for so long he'd thought she might fire him on the spot. Then, surprisingly, her expression had softened. "You'd do that?" "Of course, Ms. Sullivan." "Emma," she'd corrected automatically. "If you're escorting me to an awards ceremony, you should probably use my first name." That's how Daniel had ended up in her Upper East Side apartment, waiting while she changed into her gown, a vision in midnight blue silk that made his heart forget its rhythm. He'd been instructed to zip her up when she called, a simple task he'd done hundreds of times for his late wife before cancer took her 3 years ago. But as his fingers brushed against Emma's bare skin, as he slowly pulled the zipper upward, his phone had vibrated in his pocket. He'd glanced at the screen, seen Richard's name, and read the message that changed everything. "Tell Emma I'll be there after all. Flight cancelled. Don't tell her, want to surprise her." In that moment, Daniel had made a choice that would alter both their lives. Because in 3 years of working alongside Emma Sullivan, watching her build her empire while he struggled to build a life for Sophie. He'd seen something no one else had, the loneliness behind the achievement, the woman behind the executive. And he'd seen how Richard treated her, the cancelled dates, the performative affection, the way he spoke about her to his friends when he thought no one from her office could hear. So when Emma had asked him to zip her dress, when she'd stood vulnerable before him, questioning if she looked all right, Daniel had made the decision that could cost him his job but might save her heart. "He's not coming," Daniel had whispered, still holding the zipper at the top of her spine. "And he doesn't deserve to." Now, as Emma turned to face him, Daniel expected anger, expected to be dismissed, both from her apartment and likely from his position. Instead, she asked, "How do you know that?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Because I know men like Richard. Men who see someone like you as an accessory, not a partner. I've watched him disappoint you for months, Emma. You deserve someone who shows up." "Someone like you?" she asked, her voice challenging but with a curious undertone that made his pulse quicken. "No," Daniel said honestly. "I'm just your assistant. But even I know that when something matters, when someone matters, you move heaven and earth to be there for them." Emma's gaze softened as she studied him, really looked at him perhaps for the first time. Not the efficient assistant who anticipated her needs, but the man behind that role. The single father who never missed a day of work despite a daughter with asthma. The widower who still wore his wedding ring. The person who remembered her birthday when everyone else forgot. "Why are you here tonight, Daniel?" she asked softly. "Because you shouldn't have to face your moment alone," he answered simply. "Because everyone deserves someone in their corner." Emma turned back to the mirror, studying their reflection, her in designer silk, him in his one good suit. An unlikely pair. "The car will be here in 10 minutes, she said finally. "We should go." Daniel nodded, already stepping back into his professional role, but Emma caught his hand. "Thank you," she said. "For telling me the truth." What neither of them knew then was that Richard would indeed show up at the ceremony, 30 minutes late and full of excuses. What they couldn't have predicted was that Emma would already be on stage accepting her award, thanking her dedicated team, and especially her assistant Daniel, who had taught her what loyalty truly meant. They couldn't have known that later that night, after champagne and celebration, after Emma had coolly dismissed Richard's belated appearance, she and Daniel would find themselves standing outside her apartment once more. "Thank you for tonight," she would say. "For everything." And Daniel would simply nod, turn to leave, to return to his sleeping daughter and his separate life. "Daniel," Emma would call after him. "Would you and Sophie like to have dinner sometime? Not as boss and assistant. Just as people." The journey that began with a zipper and 5 honest words would take many more months to unfold. Emma would learn to be not just a boss but a friend, not just a career woman but someone's partner. Daniel would learn to open his heart again, to trust that lightning could strike twice in one lifetime. And little Sophie would gain not a stepmother, but a true second parent who attended her school plays with the same dedication she gave to publishing deadlines. The path wasn't smooth: office gossip, Richard's attempts to win Emma back, the challenges of blending lives and hearts that had grown accustomed to isolation. But with each obstacle came greater certainty that what they were building together mattered more than what they were risking. 1 year later, Emma would stand in another beautiful dress, in another bedroom. This time, as Daniel zipped it up, his touch lingering on her skin, he would whisper different words against her ear: "I'll always be here." And she would turn, take his face in her hands, and finally say the words that had been growing in her heart since the night he'd told her the truth: "I know. That's why I love you." Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is speak truth when silence would be easier. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with grand gestures, but with simple honesty, with zipping a dress and whispered words that change everything. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Life is full of unexpected moments that change our paths forever, moments of courage, honesty, and new beginnings. What unexpected moment changed your life? Share in the comments below.